Welcome to You Should Be Watching for the summer anime season of 2015. After painstakingly watching the first episode of every new anime airing this season, I'm ready to bring you the definitive guide as to what you should spend your time watching, or avoiding like you would a venereal disease. Unfortunately, there are around 30 different anime that have started airing, so this will be a multi-part video, otherwise no one would watch it. First up is Okusama ga Seito Kaichou, an ecchi anime revolving around a high school student who has found himself in an arranged marriage with his student council president, who herself has declared her mission to liberate the school from the archaic rule that prohibits students from being in relationships while attending. How does she do this? Well, within 15 seconds she's thrown condoms into the crowd. In the first few minutes we are treated to gratuitous panty shots and cleavage shots, and the show culminates in a completely uncensored nipple sucking session. Yes, you heard that right, this show is airing completely uncensored due to the based ATX television station. Turns out you can show titties on television after all, as long as you don't air in Tokyo. All in all, this borderline hentai is one to keep an eye on. The only disappointment being that it's only 8 minutes in length. Nothing sets an opening scene like the brutal beating of a prostitute in a back alley. The opening scene pretty much sums up what to expect so far from Gangsta: blood and bitches. The story follows two handymen, who I shall refer to as the pirate and the Asian, as they clean up the streets of some presumably American town by painting them with blood and possibly semen as well. In the current world of moe, the slightly more realistic character design and somewhat brutal violence, that I expect more to be fleshed out in the DVD, are a refreshing change. As to what overarching plot there'll be, well, that remains to be seen, but I'm positive that we can rest assured that there'll be plenty of jobs for our Asian pirate double team to take on from both the police and the mafia, and maybe a little romance between one of the prostitutes and Mr. Pirate-san as well. Chaos Dragon is the result of a Dungeons & Dragons session between some of the leading names in the anime industry. Apparently it went so well that a 7 light novel series was produced, which is now being animated. With enough changes from the original novel, Gen Urobuchi's character has been gender bent and now has stonking great tits for some reason. There's a possibility that this won't just be light novel bait, but only 12 episodes is either going to be horribly paced or end on a sequel hook. In any case, the story revolves around our ousted heir to the throne, Lolly Boy, as he's caught up in a rebellion and forms a pact with his country's dragon in order to save the world or something. As you may expect from the mention of Urobuchi earlier, even in the first episode, things do not go swimmingly, although there is a little bit of swimming. Aside from some flashy animation and the promise of some battle scenes, I'm not expecting a great deal from this anime, but it could be the surprise of the season if done properly. Now, everyone loves a good mystery, the thrill of the chase, the surprise of the plot twists near the end. Perhaps the biggest surprise to come from Ranpo Kitan's first episode is a revelation that traps have been part of Japanese mainstream media since the pre-war era. Ranpo Kitan is a probably loose adaptation of Edgar Rampo's novels. You've likely never heard of him, but he was a big mystery writer in 20th century Japan. Ranpo Kitan features some strong characters right out of the starting gate, with a super high school level detective and our presumable protagonist, a boy who excels as dressing as a girl. Not only excels, but apparently enjoys as well. With a strong opening episode and no definitive number of them announced, I'm excited to see where this series goes, and how many of Edogawa's sizable number of mystery novels will get adapted. Yet another show involving traps of sorts, Aoharu x Kikanjuu sees a girl who dresses as a boy and doesn't wear a bra. Hold your celebrations, feminists, joining an all-male war games team. Not all-male because the sport is segregated or something, purely because the leader of the team refuses to allow girls in. He's also the owner of a host club. Honestly, I don't think the first episode of the series shows its true potential. Yes, there is a rather impressive toy gun battle, but a large amount is spent on the character introductions, and you know what? They seem like rather good characters. The other member of the wargame team is an aero manga artist who's apparently into S&M, so that's a big plus in my books. It has to be said though, if it wasn't for the fact that the main character was a reverse trap, the show would appear to be rather homoerotic. Imagine for a second that Japan had a king who refused to live in a castle and insisted on a normal life for his family. His rather large, 9 children and 2-parent family, and that the next king would be decided democratically out of his children, which is a bit of an oxymoron, with a whole TV station dedicated to them, and 2,000 cameras dotted around town following their every move for their protection. Presumably the original mangaka didn't think he could write about enough wacky situations with this set, so also all of the kids have superpowers which are proof of their bloodline. Welcome to Castletown Dandelion. The show actually had a fairly good first episode, managing to introduce all 11 main characters fairly well, each with their own personalities. Also different hair colours. I hate to point this out, but that's not how genetics works. In any case, my vote goes for the youngest girl, because there's nothing better than having a 5-year-old run your country. It's a bit like Britain and David Cameron, really. I know what you're thinking about this show. It looks like something that your nan would have been watching in her early childhood back when the dinosaurs still roamed around outside the village. This is Ushio Tottori, an adaptation of an incredibly old manga where a boy stumbles upon a demon impaled with a spear in his basement and ends up having to release him to save the girls he was planning to have a threesome with from the other evil demons that are attacking them. Okay, it's not actually that lewd, but this show is essentially a shonen show, where every moment is one of those comedy moments that those shonens have. If that's your thing, you're probably going to have a good time here, but it's really not for me. which is good actually because I wasn't planning to have a discussion with my nan about the anime art styles of the early 1900s anytime soon. And our generic Moe shit of the season award goes to Wakaba Girls, an 8-minute short in which Moe Blob girls talk to each other about Moe Blob things and Moe Blob around a lot. Which is kind of cute, I guess. Not as great as the previous short Okusama though. There aren't any visible titties here. In any case, the first episode is purely about them deciding what names they want to call each other for the rest of the show. I'm not expecting great things from this, and honestly there's not a whole lot more to say. But only 8 minutes long, it might be worth watching when you're bored. A young otaku on his way to summer Comiket is interrupted by a massive gate appearing in the middle of the road, and a giant army from what looks like some time before Christ appearing out of it. As it turns out, this otaku has a job to support his hobby, and that job is being part of the Japanese self-defense force, and thus it falls on him to save the day. And then Japan decides to lash back out at the fuckers from beyond the gate because they killed a bunch of people for no reason. Thus, Mr. Otaku is drafted into the action, with the primary question on most people's minds being, will he get back in time for the winter Comiket? The show is called Gate, with a stupidly long subtitle that I'm not going to attempt to say. Again, it's hard to say a lot about the show after only one episode, but so far it's promising a mix of moe and violence that's right up my alley. For our final show of this episode, we have Classroom Star Crisis. I don't really understand why the Japanese insist on symbols being part of names. This is the second one already in 10 episodes, but nevertheless. The show is set in a Japanese colony on Mars named the Kurashina City, presumably after the aerospace corporation that founded it. In it is a high school with one special class of people who design prototype aerospace vehicles. Apparently this department is a huge drain on resources, and so the son of one of the board of directors joins in order to monitor it with the ultimate goal of shutting it down. Oh, and also they saved this very person from a hostage situation in the first episode. It's an interesting premise with nice art, but at the end of the day it may turn out to just be another slice of life show. However, it is an original anime, and for that alone I'm willing to watch it. We must stand up against manga and light novel bait in this dark time. And with that, we end the first part of You Should Be Watching for this season, with part 2 coming soon. In the meantime, you can click the subscribe button, or maybe go watch one of the other animes I just recommended, or preferably watch one of my other videos. Who knows?